Greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Supernormal Film Society. Today we have another esteemed guest for our episode, Mr. Wilfred Okiche, who's a film critic. And can you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Wilfred Okiche. I'm Nigerian. I work as a film critic or culture critic, and I've been doing that for a number of years now.
Thank you so much, for making your time. We really appreciate this. As I know, we've been speaking off our camera, in preparation for this chat. Menzi was very gracious enough to introduce myself to you, and we really appreciate this. So first, before we get into today's discussion, which is going to be very fascinating, because we usually have most of the time a lot of filmmakers and screenwriters and so forth. I believe you're the first cultural curator, film critic in the show, which is exciting to me because that means you're gonna get some very good insights, some very hot takes, I love that for these sort of things, because filmmakers are usually very reserved, because again, they don't want to talk about other filmmakers because there could be possibilities for collaboration and things like that in the future. Whereas film critics and reviewers are much more, much more open, much more, they let it go, they let it rip. So I'd like to just start right at the beginning. What made you get interested in art, and specifically the medium of film, and actually just critiquing it and actually being interested in the format as a whole?
Thank you. I would say it starts from, I guess, a love of film. So watching film. So as a child, I watched a lot of films. My parents introduced us to films, films like Sound of Music, the Indian films of those days, Marge, Sholay, all those. So stuff like that. And growing up, I would also read a lot. I was like a kind of scholarly student, if you put it that way. So I would read a lot. And when my dad gives us his newspapers or magazines to read, I would always be attracted to like the entertainment pages or the film pages. And so I guess it all follows from there, from watching films and then from reading about films and reading about people who wrote about films. And so, but I have a science background, so I studied, I have a science background from college and from university. So I didn't necessarily think that I would be doing this. It was just something I enjoyed doing. But I guess it happened by accident. I got the opportunity when I had some free time on my hands while I was in the university to like intern at a newspaper, at a media organization. They published a newspaper, an online newspaper. They published a physical magazine. And so I sent some of my work to the editor and he liked them. At that time, I was writing about everything, politics, business, because when you're an intern, you like they cycle you through all the bits. So I was doing like general kind of analysis or general reporting. But the editor was like, he felt that my work comes alive the most when I was writing about film. And so he sort of encouraged me to continue to do that. And that incidentally coincided with the time when theaters were coming back to Nigeria, because when I was growing up, there was really no theaters or no cinemas to watch films. Everything was at home in videos, on video and TV. And so filmmakers who were releasing their films in theaters, they needed people to write about them and, to kind of like drum up support as part of the publicity. And so that's how I got in. And from there, I discovered the world of film festivals. I didn't know that film festivals were a thing. I mean, I knew they were a thing, but I didn't know they were something I would be privileged to attend. But then I came across Durban Talent. Someone sent that to me and I applied for maybe 2 two years or so, and I got in eventually, and that was my first experience with a film festival. And from there, I continued to apply to other programs like Berlinale Talents, like, the Rotterdam Critics program. And that's how I became exposed to that world of film festivals. So here I am now.
Yeah, this is a very interesting, upbringing and also introduction to this fascinating medium, my brother. I must say, we do share some parallels as well. I would say, as well, I also grew up, knowing, of course, there was film festival, but it was something that was so far out of my scope. Growing up in the township here in South Africa as well, and my first experience, which is very interesting, to working in to be in contact with the film festivals was when I was thrown in the deep end, where I now had to work in a film festival, which is funny because I started working at the film festivals even before attending a film screening in a film festival, and now I had to make other people's dreams be, possible to have their film screened at a festival, which I had never attended myself, growing up ever. It is something fascinating, but still is the commonality of these stories of us, particularly us in the diaspora and particularly in Africa. We have maneuvered in very interesting ways in all these spaces. Now, when you mentioned the Sound of Music, my eyes lit up there because I'm a huge fan of musicals, especially from that era. Sound of Music, Singing in the Rain, all that stuff. I think it's some of the best thespian and just like art in history. I mean, the way that the actors there, because I mean, you have to be a good stage actor, be a proper thespian, meaning you have to have managed and be a camera presence. You have to sing. You have to literally be a good singer because it's your voice doing that. You have to have the agility, and on top of that, memorize the lines and then dance as well. On top of that, have the choreography added up on top of all of these. So I mean, and they were able to pull magic there. That era is amazing. Might I ask, do you also share that love, particularly for that era, or were you just mentioning this one specifically, or were you also into that era of Camelot and all those from that time?
I guess I do. I didn't see a lot of them at the time. It's only now that I'm seeing more of them. But I know I was exposed really to what my parents were exposed to. And so I know Sound of Music, Mary Poppins, there's that other one, Bedsticks and Broomsticks, something like that.
But doorknobs and stuff like that.
Yeah. And so, I thought that was all that was all film was about, I guess. And so I sort of had that love for music. And then the Bollywood films also, there was huge singing. So musicals were a huge staple of my day. I still love watching musicals today. So I don't know if I'm a fan of that whole era, but I'm a fan of the ones that I was exposed to at the time. And now that I'm beginning to revisit some of them on my own, I like some of what I remember I watched Singing in the Rain recently. And I was talking to a filmmaker friend, and he was talking about how he doesn't know any actor who can beat Gene Kelly that can play the Gene Kelly role.
Wilfred, you're not gonna feel this. This is the argument I have almost yearly with a few of the filmmakers. It's always him and Paul Van Dyke and who else? Yeah, but Gene Kelly and who else? There's a third guy. Yeah, trust me.
Yeah. I tried to come up with some names, George Clooney, Ryan Gosling. Yeah, they were but not quite, So that was a different era of actors, You had the different kind of skill sets that you needed to compete at that time. So it was an interesting time, really.
Yeah, great. And so, do you still remember the first sort of piece that you wrote that you were super proud of, that you felt, okay, now that I've arrived?
I've written too many things.
Yeah, the first one. And I always remains. The first one is like,
I don't
this
know. Where would
all
I start
myself.
from?
Yeah?
I couldn't tell you
Really?
this. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
because will I start from when I was at the newspaper? Will I start from when I was at a film festival? Will I start from, I don't know. It's, I have so many words behind me, but I have some stuff that I'm proud of though, you know, but
Yeah, well, can you share at least one of those, like, where you feel like, okay, this was for me
okay, I can share
proud.
one.
Yeah, one or two, it depends. Well, how many, however many you want to share.
It was published in The Verge, maybe in 2020. The Verge is an American website. It's called Netflix. It's about Netflix and Nollywood. It's called Netflix is not this, not Nollywood Savior, something like that. That's one. Yeah, yeah. Netflix is not the savior Nollywood needs or something like that. It was really the spread. I wasn't prepared for, because when I got the opportunity to write, it was about two of my favorite things, Netflix and Nollywood. And so it came naturally to me, but I also spoke with Netflix executives. I spoke with some filmmakers, and the filmmakers were pretty open about, what their experiences were working with Netflix. The Netflix executives were, a bit on the, official side. So they were just giving mostly official speak, corporate speak.
Of course, yeah.
But by the time the article came out, the PR lady who, helped me get through with Netflix people was really pissed at, just at the title. She didn't like the title. And she was like, oh, she didn't know that this was the kind of article I was going to write. And I was like, oh, well, but did you read the article? She was like, but the title is very misleading. Netflix is trying to help, PR speak. And I got back to the editor and he was like, actually, everything is pretty much accurate. There's nothing, he doesn't see any need to change anything, just because that corporates always do this. They want you to retract, but he'll be the bad guy and he'll take responsibility for it. And I should just, tell them that this was the feedback from. And so it was interesting because it spawned a lot of debate at the time because,
Which is good.
Yeah, which is
That's
good. So yeah, that's one article I easily remember. But I also remember another one that I'm proud of. It's like it was written on Movie Notebook. They asked me to do like an assessment of an African Chadian filmmaker, Mohamed Saleh Haroun, who is one of my favorite filmmakers. He lives in Paris. He makes his films in Chad. And I was just going through his filmography, sort of like analyzing the themes and the style of his films. So that was also a joy to write. But I've done many things. My work with the continent, part of it also, where I have to write like 300 word film reviews. So yeah.
Oh, this is really, really fascinating, actually. And speaking of Nollywood, of course, it is the biggest film industry in Africa, and rightfully so. And most people attribute it, I believe, mistakenly. But you can correct me again, because again, I'm not from the region, but I don't believe it's because Nigerians are it's quite a huge population in Nigeria. I just feel because it resonates with a lot of people around the world. They stick to themes that are universal and that affect a lot of us as Africans on the continent as a whole. So it's not only just the Nigerian population. I know that's for a fact that there is these. I know most of the time it's always the case. It's always like, I know it's because Nigeria is huge and they cater for their people. And I'm like, no, but I feel that I know a lot of South Africans, even when I go to Francophone Africa, which they struggle with the English, our brothers there, but they know Nollywood films. Now, this is where my question is going. Is there a name that is used locally by Nigerians to refer to the film industry in a more another derivative name of like a Bollywood or a Nollywood, something that is owned by Africans? Is there such a thing existing there in the region to call the film industry?
It's pretty much Nollywood, but even within Nollywood, we have like different. It was funny, surprised to note that to find we have like different woods even within Nollywood. Nollywood is like the general wood. I know the Hausa language group that operates up north is like Kannywood. They call themselves Kannywood because they're based in Kano. Headquarters is in Kano State. And there's like another hub in Asaba. That's further east. I don't think they're called Asaba Wood, but so that's, I don't know what they call themselves, but it's like they call like the Asaba axis. And then they have like the new Nollywood, which is like the filmmakers who like think they're too cool for, that old style of Nollywood filmmaking. So it's all like a jumble. It's very informal. It's just, we use Nollywood as shorthand for saying the film industry, really. But yeah, yeah. So instead of just reaching to say, oh, the film industry, Nigerian film industry is just like Nollywood. When you say Nollywood,
Another,
everybody
so
knows what
there,
you
yeah.
mean.
Yeah. Usually I was saying that because I'm trying to, one of my passions as well is always detaching as much as possible from the Western lens of how they, because, obviously because it's derivative of Hollywood. Therefore, it's always, there's a tendency of film industry always being looked as, a bit less of in terms of output than the Hollywood, because there's always going to be a Hollywood, which is not the case. And sometimes, some of the films that come out of Nollywood are sometimes equal or even better quality than I'm not than the ones that I made in Hollywood. More so now, since Hollywood has been in shambles for the last 5 years or so. So you see, so even having a word, this is something that I'm looking at in terms of like transcending at some point. But of course, we'll get there eventually as Africans. So,
Yeah.
would you agree to what I had mentioned earlier when I'm saying, for example, maybe in your experience, do you feel the same way that the popularity of Nollywood films, of the film industry in Nigeria? I know there's Afrif and Afrif is quite big there. You can also even mention if there are other festivals that I am not aware of that you might feel that maybe our listeners might need to tap into. But would you agree that the popularity is not only because of the population size of Nigeria, it's just because it resonates with as many Africans as it does?
I think it's a mixture of maybe a mixture of several factors. The population has to do with a lot of things because with the population, then there's a bigger market. And so you're reaching more people. Then also Nigerians being who we are. Some people say Nigerians are very I don't know if it's true, are very like aggressive and in your face. There's that also. But there's also that the films speak to us directly. It's one thing to watch a film from Hollywood, and even when they make their black films, it's with African Americans, it's not exactly our reality. Yes, we share some commonalities, but we are also different, as opposed to seeing a film from Nigeria or from Kenya or from South Africa, for instance. And so Nollywood films have that sense of being of the people. It's not something you make up. It's something like look outside your window and you see those same people you saw on screen, sort of having a discussion. Or so in that sense, the early Nollywood filmmakers sort of cracked that code. And I think that sort of helped it to travel. And someone in Kenya, first of all, they all have the same skin color as me. They have this accent, that are close to mine. They are speaking in, pidgin English or local languages or even English, but they are speaking it in a way that I can, I have an ear for that musicality.
Yeah.
And then their living arrangements, their situations is very similar to, some people say, how you say in quote, Africa is a country, and you go outside and you see it's very relatable. This could be you, so there's that also. And there's also the fact that Nigerians travel, migrate a lot. We are very, we travel a lot. There's a joke that there's a Nigerian in every part of the world, doesn't matter how hostile that place is. And so when we are moving, we're taking, especially those era of DVDs and videotapes, people were taking these films with them, pirated copies, whatever copies. to populations, Nigerian populations abroad. It was Europe, it was America, it was the Caribbeans, and then also within Africa. A lot of it traveled within Africa, first of all, actually, before they started spreading, and that novelty of seeing yourself on screen. People sort of people sort of underestimate how powerful it is to see yourself reflected on screen. So they talk a lot, because representation has become such like a buzzword or like a cliche, but it's a very powerful thing to switch on the TV and see someone you can identify with that is not, European, or that is not American, in that sense. And then the stories were simple, they were relatable. People can relate to that: love, betrayal, money rituals, desperation, poverty. And it wasn't like you were talking down on the people. The films were meeting the people exactly where they are. So it wasn't like, they weren't like these pretentious films where you have to have some kind of education to appreciate. It was just, very easy, relatable film. So I think it's a combination of all those factors.
That's very true, Wilfred Mthembu. It's very impactful. I think what you mentioned is very powerful as well. I don't think many people, especially people who are not from the continent, understand what it means when we see ourselves. You should see yourself being represented, in an authentic way. The key is also an authentic way, that really speaks profoundly to us. And I do love as well how you mentioned.
It's not from an angle where it's like poverty porn, like Africa is this poverty disease.
Yes.
Is that these people, even if they are poor, they are having fun, they are having joy, they are walking through their situations, and you recognize that as yourself. So
no, absolutely, and we should continue actually in Africa doing more of this from the continent, doing the work definitely, instead of waiting for Europeans as well to come and also tell our stories. I think this needs to continue as much as we can. So I mentioned as well that the one festival that I am familiar with, because I think we have worked with them in the past. I have worked with them in the past. AFRIF. Is there another festival that is just as that you feel does impactful work in the region as well?
You mean in Africa or in Nigeria?
In Nigeria. Yeah.
Well, AFRIF is the big one, obviously. There's a couple of other ones, they're not quite as big as AFRIF. I know there's one started maybe 2-3 years ago, the Surreal 16 Film Festival. It started by a collective of filmmakers, 3 filmmakers really. They're trying to do a different direction than the, commercial Nollywood fare. Their films are a bit more artistic, a bit more, I guess you could say, highbrow. And so they sort of curate a festival every end of the year. It's an interesting kind of festival where they curate like some of those best films from around the continent. And so there's that one. There's a couple more that I'm forgetting. There's a couple of regional ones focused. I know Abuja has one called Zuma International Film Festival.
So Zuma International.
Yeah, Zuma. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Named after Zuma Rock, because Abuja has Zuma Rock. But there's one that Edo State started also. So different regions. Yeah, they are not quite as huge as AFRIF. AFRIF is obviously the big one. You're on mute though.
Yes, of course. And also, but very commercial as well. Big, but also very commercial.
Yes, very. AFRIF is a festival that I struggle with. And I say this because I've worked with them for a couple of years on the programming side. It's a festival that I think struggles with its identity sometimes. It's not quite sure what it wants to be. Is it a festival of discovery? Is it a huge Hollywood? It wants to do everything at once, So, and sometimes when you want to do everything at once, then you lose sight of, what's really,
Yeah,
what you can
we
be doing. This
definitely.
year they're doing Black Panther, they're inviting everybody, Ryan Coogler, the whole
Yeah,
cast.
yeah.
Next year they're doing, I don't know, whatever they're
Yeah.
doing,
It's
so,
interesting. If
so
we have
yeah,
a
I mean,
parallel here in South Africa, I feel like the Joburg Film Festival, which started like in the recent years, I think they're in that same. Whenever I see them, I think they like operate the same as Africa as well. Either you need the money to, you want the glitz and glamour, but
yeah,
thing, and it kind of loses, some of
yeah.
the. I mean,
But
they've got. Oh, sorry. Yes.
no, I don't blame them also because it's hard to
Right.
operate film festivals, certainly in a place like Nigeria, where if
Definitely.
you had to sell tickets, if Africa had to sell tickets, I don't think they would be existing today. So a lot of the programming is really free. You just register and
Right.
come and watch films.
Yeah.
But in order to get it that way, they have to get the funding from some
There to
other
be some
way.
compromise. Yeah, there has to be
Yes,
some.
and so
Yeah.
that's why I don't.
Right.
When I want to
Uh,
criticize them, I sort of remember that essentially they
uh,
present these films for free. A festival like Berlin, for instance, is a huge public festival. The Berlin public buys into it. They buy tickets, they come and see, even if it's a film from Swaziland, they will come. If it's a film from Lesotho, they will come and watch. In Lagos, I don't think people would come and watch a film you know, from wherever. Even from Nigeria, it's a struggle to get them to watch the homegrown films. So in order for the festival to offset that cost and draw in people, they have to make these bargains and compromises. So as long as people continue to watch these films, then I'm fine with it.
yeah, that's all that matters. That's true. Yeah, that's true. So now moving on to our next phase of our chat. I mean, there's a lot of insights I've gotten, Wilfred. I'm really glad that we got you on this episode as well. Although we woke you up very early, but we appreciate that you made time for us. I just want to know the second. Now get back to like I said, the second phase of our chat, and that is to do with your favorite films or pieces of art that made an impact to you. They either made an impact to you, or it's stuff that you really enjoyed, or maybe they resonated with you, or they inspired you. Whatever it could be, the criteria is totally up to you. But and it's also up to you if you want to rank them, or you just want to put them out there in no particular order. We'll have 5. We might have some time, maybe if we have some time left over for maybe just a bonus, an honorable mention if you want. But yeah, we'll keep it at 5 for now. And then we'll have
Do
a
you mean
little
like
chat around.
Nigerian African films or just any
Be
kind of?
anything, totally anything from all over the world at any time, any genre, any time. Yeah, anywhere. You're 5.
Okay, I guess, I've already talked about it. I'll start with The Sound of Music because if there's a film that is the film of my childhood, then is that, of a more innocent time with my brothers and sister, singing along to all the songs. We knew all the songs, all the songs. So Sound of Music would be one. I'm not ranking them. I'm just going to give you.
Sure. Sure.
So I guess if I would continue with that childhood element, I would also go with the Harry Potter movies. Maybe all of them. I don't know. I'll just put all of them as one.
Right? Yeah, cheating. But I'll let it slide. I'll let this one go. Could you? Can I push it a little bit? Can I push it a little bit and ask you for one favorite Harry Potter one? If this possible, but you can. You got.
Maybe
You're
the
the first.
third one.
The
Maybe
third.
the third
Whoa.
one. Yeah.
Fine. What
Azkaban.
is it on? Prisoner of
Prisoner
Azkaban.
of
That
Azkaban.
one.
Yeah,
Oh,
maybe
okay.
that one. Yeah.
Why that one particularly?
I don't. I don't know. It's funny. Or actually, I'll take it back. Maybe the first one, because I've watched the first one more times than I can recall. So just for that. Plus, Yeah, so maybe that one, because that's the one I remember I watched more. I can quote you lines from that one the most. If I say Prisoner of Azkaban, then I'm coming from like my film critic. Uh, you
Yeah.
know,
And it's also cinematography, because by that time as well, the budgets are even bigger. There's
yeah,
time to, now there's
yeah,
a lot. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, great. And then number three?
Number three would be Hyenas. It's a
Oh,
Senegalese
oh,
film
yeah.
by Jibril Diop Mambeti. It's a film that
The
I think
Godfather.
I think every African should watch. I think every human
I
being,
agree.
doesn't
I
matter if
agree.
can should watch. It's just a great film. I saw it. I was like, wow,
The
and
color palette is, for me, the
yeah,
colors,
yes,
for me, I think it's one of the one of the few films that when people talk, DOPs and people who are into cinematography, they talk a lot about how color can put you in a space and they can elicit certain emotions. But in that work, you can literally, the color, that's why I got the sense of, actually, the color, actually, that transporting me to that region. It's transporting me into that
hmm
world.
hmm hmm
Vivid, and you feel
yes.
like you're there. Yeah,
It's so
totally agree.
stylistic. But it's not just stylistic for stylistic sake. It also has married to the content, talking about globalization and, colonization, neo-colonization. And then I just think the female protagonist or the villain, whatever she is, I think she's iconic. I
Yeah,
love her. I can't get enough of her, I just like, that's how you do revenge. You come back, in a big, I love her, love the film.
yeah,
Um,
it's a
so
good one. I
Hyena.
agree.
Uh, a fourth one would be Yilin. Yilin is a Malian film by Suleiman Sisse, who just passed away last 2-3 weeks. It's one of those foundational African films that I also encourage everybody to see. It's doing something exciting, and you talked about colors. And there's also that in this one, and some unforgettable imagery. And to think that it was made in, I think it was the 80s when it was made, or was it the 70s? I should know this, but don't mind. But
No, no,
worry
don't worry
about.
about that. Yeah,
Yeah,
but yeah, yeah.
it's like it sort of opens African film. Like African film doesn't have to be, because for many years Sembene was the idea of African film, and it had to be like that kind of social realism or realism. And Yelin sort of disrupts that. It just blows it open that African film can be anything. There's oral folk storytelling, there's sci-fi, there's a bit of science fiction going on, there's traveling between magic, and it's a great experience. I would recommend it to everyone to watch it.
And I definitely now need to watch. That's actually one filmmaker whose work I have not seen as much. Of course, everyone has seen some Ben and all this, but I definitely need to get up, because I remember last, I think, was it 2 weeks ago? That they passed away. Because it's been a lot of tributes. I've seen the
Yeah,
tributes, and it's one of the things that's been in my backlog. Now, my brother, I need to really see this work.
yeah.
Feel it's quite. I also love magical realism and all these sort of things.
Mhm.
So I think
Uh,
if you it has elements of that, definitely
yeah.
something I need to get up
And
on.
I was privileged to meet him last year, so that was great. Yeah, yeah. So his death was really shocking because he was a very active old man. He was old, but he was very, very, active, very, very energetic. So, but yeah, may so rest in peace. Anyway, so that's Yelin. How many have I called? Four?
You have one more,
One
one last
more.
one.
Okay, one last one. I would go with West Indies. It's directed by Med Hondo, and
Ah,
yeah,
yeah. I've read his autobiography recently. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That's so
Speaking
that
of musicals, if
fine.
you like musicals, you probably love it.
I
It's a
know.
musical, and it's like his homage to that Hollywood style music making of those days. It's like his own homage, but very African or very Afro-Caribbean in that it's about like the slave trade and neo-colonization, and a lot of angry words for the French and a lot of satire. And it's all set in a ship. and they are changing, the sets are changing. It's all within that space, just the way he uses that space to, make dazzling shots, compositions. It's great. I also encourage everyone to watch that. So,
Now,
West.
this is a solid list, my brother. I love the mixture as well, how we accelerate from childhood whimsy to deep
Yes.
social commentary and all of this. And this is the joy of cinema, right? Like, how I would say, I don't even want to keep it basic and say this is the joy of cinema, and this is what everyone would say. I think this is the joy of cinema, specifically in an African individual's context, because our countries have been colonized by so many cultures and so many thoughts and ideas and everything throughout time. Colonization itself is abhorrent, but from colonization, what we have gleaned as Africans, we've taken things, we're taking cues from all these different civilizations, incorporated in our culture, and enabled to transcend in a sense. So we were able to, it gave us sort of like a superpower, this thing of having one coming at us, because now we could understand how everyone else thinks, and they don't know how we think as much as and we can operate at a level that they always confuses them. And this is evidence in our art, from music to film and everything. And I think
And
this
in
is
a
a
way,
great.
you've just described exactly Yelin. That's what Yelin does. That's what Yelin is about.
See, I have to watch this now after this. I have to go in because I have this Plex server where I keep all of the films that I need to watch. It's just that time, responsibilities. I hated it. When I was younger, I didn't have access to any of this stuff, and I had all the time. Now you're older, you have access to things. Now there's bills, there's work, there's all.
There's family.
Man, there's family. You're like, man, I should have gotten access to this 10 years ago. I needed this, yeah. But definitely, I definitely have it on my server. Yeah, I'm gonna check it out most definitely. Also, I mean, it's only right considering what has just also transpired. I really need to get up to speed on that. And so before
if I can cheat and add one more, just something I watched recently that I think is great, and I think everybody should watch, is this film called On Becoming a Guinea Fowl. It's
have you seen it already? On Becoming a Guinea Fowl?
Yes, by Rungano Nyoni. She's
man, don't spoil it for me. Please
I'm
don't
not
spoil it.
But I'll just.
Oh my word! Oh, you see it?
Don't worry
I
about
want
it.
to watch that so bad.
Closely.
Everyone I know actually, I want to watch that one so bad. But the thing is, I'm approaching it with caution, but I'm also interested because knowing what A24 was and has become now, and it being an A24 co-signed film, I mean, I'm glad that they're moving out of that, because they were getting into a rut, with their specific type of film. It was catering to a specific film bro type of person.
Audience.
So this is interesting to me, also by an African black woman. But oh my word, I'm actually like 2 sentences from asking you how you feel about it, but I don't want to spoil it for myself. You know what? It's fine. I'll watch it anyway. Go ahead, my brother. Talk on it. What do you feel?
I don't have much to say. I just, I recommend it. I loved it. I think, and it's also, it could have been she's very sort of stylistic in her approach, very surreal, I guess you could say magical realism, but it's also a film that could easily be a Nollywood film, in my opinion. It could be a South African film. It could be from any part of the continent.
Yeah.
It's a culture that we recognize. So when you see the film and you watch it, you can recognize this culture.
Yeah, the trailer is amazing. I must say, it's the first. I mean, I think they did an exceptional job on the trailer. I think that's what got everyone also very hyped up, because it's like what's going on, and then it sets up the plots, for the uncle and everything very well. So I'm gonna actually I'll send you a text after I've watched it, and we can chop it up and see, cool. Share notes and like what you feel about it, right? And so I think this for now, this is great, and thank you again for giving so much of your time and sharing with us your love for the medium and of course, your immense knowledge of that region, which I really feel. Nigeria, I would count maybe. Think that I don't want to get in trouble with my brothers from across from every part of the continent, because I've got friends everywhere. But I feel Nigeria specifically, and I'll say the North. Some of the films that are made in Northern Africa, they're quite strong in the vision. The dedication to the visions, they have the strongest. In South Africa, we're in a bit of we're struggling a bit of a identity. I wouldn't say identity, it's a crisis, but it is kind of, because we're leaning a lot towards a lot of westernization in our stories, where in the past we were quite heading confidently in a very strong identity, but it seems like we are in this middle ground, which I hope it doesn't last very long. But in these two regions that I've just mentioned now, and I think in the past, of course, Francophone Africa has been very much, in the forefront. But I feel these two regions now, Nigeria and North Africa, are like really pushing the envelope in terms of just also conviction to the visions, whatever it could be, whatever it is. So I'm very grateful to have you as well joining this podcast. And is there anything you wanted to maybe mention before we wrap up? Is there anything you are working on currently that you'd like the audience and the listeners to know about before we wrap this up? And any last words?
No last words really, except go watch more African films. I know there's the problem of access, and how to watch them and how to find them. But I feel like if you make deliberate efforts, you will find some. I mean, now with Netflix, there's a couple on Netflix, there's a couple on Amazon Prime, there's also like other Showmax, there's also like other African or niche kind of sort of focused distribution platforms. So it's better than it was 10 years ago in terms of, access to the content. And I feel like we need to do more work with, getting the films out. A lot of good films go to film festivals and just disappear. And a lot of good films also go to theaters and nobody watches them.
National festivals, and I never showed on the continent as well. That's another thing. The puzzle,
So, but even the ones that are released at home, they are released maybe 2 weeks, nobody watches them, they pull them from theaters and then they disappear also. So I feel like we need to be more deliberate about supporting African film. So support an African film or filmmaker today.
Yes, you should start a campaign.
Yes.
That's going to be the title of this episode, actually. You just gave me a title. Thank you so much, brother. Thank you everyone for tuning in and listening, and also those who are joining us on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and thank you to our esteemed guests for sparing the time to share his immeasurable knowledge and expertise and just anecdotes regarding the film industry. We would love to have you again anytime. You're always a guest of the show now. Anytime you need to come, anytime you need to bring someone on board that you feel you need to highlight, please welcome to do so, Wilfred. And any parting words? And
I don't know, just thanks for having me. It was a pleasure. And go watch an African film today. Make sure you watch one today.
Oh my God. People are going to hate you, Wilfred. People are going to be like, Wilfred, please pay my bills since you asked me to watch it. I feel
That's one. It's 2 hours. It's a good 2 hours. You can, you can be pressing your phone for 2 hours.
True, TikTok for more than 2 hours.
So use that time to watch something. We need to know our film history so that we know sort of where we're going or where we are and then where we can go next. That's what I feel, especially with Nigerian film. We don't really know the film history. A lot of filmmakers don't know their history. And that's why I'm always wary of someone that says, oh, I'm the first person to do this. The first to do that.
Same, yeah.
It's like,
I've been surprised enough times in my life not to use this anymore. because you're always
Yeah.
gonna
Like, go
never
read a
be
book,
rooted
go
right.
watch a
Yeah,
film, and you will see that you're really not
uh,
the first.
yeah, and that's
You can't
okay,
be the,
and that's okay as
and
well.
that's okay, and
But
that's fine. There's a
yeah,
tradition. That's why it's a
yeah,
tradition, you know.
yes.
So yeah,
Huh. Thank you so
rant,
much,
end of
Wilfred.
rant.
Yeah, thank you so much, Wilfred. Like I said, anytime you need to come back to the show, if you need to come back, you need to get something off your chest, you need a project, there's a project that you need to highlight or something is up, let me know and you can come back to the show and appreciate this very much.